Guys, Tales from the Crypt finally has a home. It's on Shudder. You can watch it online now, and not in 480p on YouTube. Now I'm starting to think I spent a little too much money on the box set. Who am I kidding? I love physical media. Hi everybody, my name's King Newsme, and I asked you guys what episode from Tales from the Crypt I should talk about, and you guys voted for The Man Who Was Death. I wasn't very surprised when the episode won the poll. I mean, it's the first episode of the series, and everyone has seen it. I also like getting the first episode of any series I talk about out of the way pretty early because most of the time, that's the one that gets the most views. But a very quick explanation for people who don't know what Tales from the Crypt is. Tales from the Crypt is an anthology horror series created by William Gaines and Stephen Dodd that aired on HBO. Each episode is based off of various horror comics from the publishing company EC. Comics like The Vault of Horror, or Tales from the Crypt, of course. There are also a few movies that are directly connected to the show, and two that were made before it, but are somewhat spiritual predecessors for the show. Today we're taking a look at the first episode of the show, The Man Who Was Death, one of the most popular episodes, not only because it's the first episode, but because it's an incredible first episode. They did a great job at choosing a story that really sticks with you. It's based off of a comic with the same name in the 17th issue of The Crypt of Terror, and it aired on June 10th in 1989 along with the iconic Christmas episode and All Through the House for an hour-long Tales from the Crypt special. I still want to know what they were thinking when they aired a Christmas episode in the middle of June. Walter Hill directed the episode and would come back for two other episodes in the series, Cutting Cards and Deadline. The episode was written by Robert Renaud with help from Walter Hill, and sadly this is one of few projects Robert wrote for. But he did write the awesome movie Demolition Man. That's pretty cool. But I know why you're here. Let's quit yapping and get into the episode. We start the episode with the Crypt Keeper, of course, feeling remorseful that he's killing the flies in the crypt because, just like us, they were all babies once upon a time.
All those cute little maggots.
Then he introduces us to the story by telling us it's about a man who likes to kill human pests.
And he does it in front of an audience.
And he wastes no time in opening his book of stories to get us started. Fun fact, this is the one and only time in the series where the Crypt Keeper doesn't say the title of the episode before we get to see it. I guess Robert didn't get the memo when he was writing the script. Then we fade into the book and into a jail cell. A narrator tells us that the man in the cell is named Charles Ledbetter. He's in the slammer for murdering his boss and one of the secretaries after he was denied a raise, and now he's just minutes away from the electric chair. As the cops carry poor Charlie to his demise, we finally get to meet the narrator and main character of the episode, Niles Talbot. He's the executioner for the prison and has been for a while, and he really likes his job. A little too much. We continue to watch as Charlie is sobbing his way down the hall, begging the cops to let him go and that he doesn't want to die. Niles seems to find this part of his job amusing. He says it's because right before they get the electric chair, all the tough men in prison turn into the biggest crybabies, and they always claim that the governor is going to call and let them go. But he's been working at the prison for 12 years and the governor hasn't called yet. Then he tries to convince the audience that the electric chair is actually a very humane way of killing somebody, and all the spitting and foaming at the mouth stuff that they show us on TV is far from the actual truth. Niles mentions that some people say the electric chair kills you so quickly that the person's brain gets fried and melted before your body even knows you're being electrocuted.
Boy, I'd hate to think that was true.
That's because I don't think it is true. But it doesn't take long until poor Charlie is strapped down, staring death in the face. Death in this case is Talbot himself, who revels in taking Charlie's life. Next, we get a nice close-up of Niles as he gives us some background info about himself. Niles lived in the country for most of his life, but he moved to the city to be an electrician, where he soon found a job at the prison taking care of the generators.
I like electricity.
We know, man. I think you like it a little too much, actually. But as he was working on the generators at the prison, he somehow slipped his way into being the executioner for the prison. And he really loves his job, specifically that he gets to electrocute people. He even mentions how some states use lethal injection or gas to kill someone, but he doesn't really like that method as much.
That's how you kill a dog or a cat or something, not a man.
Later, Niles goes to a nearby diner, where he learns that the state government is taking away the death penalty because it's just wrong.
Many also claim that execution is still murder in the eyes of God.
Instantly taking away Niles' job without even warning him. So the next day, Niles goes back to the warden to ask if he could get his job back working on the generators in the basement. But they already have a new electrician and they don't really need him anymore. He's also a risk now because the other prisoners know who he is and they could try and attack him if he stuck around. So he goes where every sad man goes when he finds out he lost his job. the bar. Niles is a regular at this bar and is pretty good friends with the bartender, who is probably just as mad as Niles is that they got rid of the death penalty.
I can't believe those chicken shit politicians really did it.
They talk about how TV shows are giving capital punishment a bad rep. Niles even thinks that if they gave every prisoner a TV and forced them to watch a few executioners, that would teach them a lesson and they probably wouldn't do crime anymore.
Now that might be a real education.
Hell, I'd watch it.
Ew, yeah, I bet you would, you freak. Someone should really do a background check on this bartender. He's a little too excited to see people dying. Almost more than Niles. And that's saying something. Niles also mentions that if they live broadcast executions on TV, it would be a hit. And then other TV companies would be looking for someone to kill to get higher ratings.
Other networks would start killing people just to compete.
I mean, that's kind of what happened with the guillotine and hangings like way back in the day, you know? People would gather to watch that. Hopefully you guys are starting to understand that Niles isn't exactly the greatest guy ever. He's also not very stable in the head. And what does a violent man who's not stable in the head do when he loses his job? Well, he becomes a vigilante, of course. We cut to some time later, and this scum of the earth man named James Flood swerves life in prison for killing someone simply because they were gay, because the defendant made a clerical error in the case files. Also, quick fun fact, Jimmy Flood is a reference to George Flood, one of the executioner's victims in the comic I'll be talking about here later in this video. Niles doesn't like seeing the justice system fail innocent people, so he decides to take matters into his own hands. Talbot tells us that he really doesn't have anything against bikers. In a lot of ways, they're actually similar. They just miss when times were simpler, but with Jimmy Flood, Niles doesn't like Jimmy Flood.
Now he went way out of line. And he ought to pay.
So Niles waits outside Jimmy's gate with his own personal electrical executioner kit hooked up to the metal gate to give Jimmy a big shock when he tries to unlock it. Thankfully, he doesn't get caught for Jimmy's murder. Instead, the authorities believe that a short circuit was the cause of his death. I mean, that definitely wasn't a short circuit. Bro got fried for like 10 seconds. As Niles listens to the details of Jimmy's death on the news, he and his bartender buddy Vic talk about how it must have been God punishing him for what he did. Vic also brings up how he saw on the news that the minorities were the main victims of the electric chair, and he asks Niles if he noticed that while he was working, but Niles didn't really care about the color of their skin because...
And they're all pretty dark when I get done with them, Vic.
Sometime later, Niles finds his next victim to satisfy his urge of bringing justice to the world, if you can even call it justice. But this time it's a couple, a man named Theodore Carney and a lady named Cynthia Baldwin. They're on trial for the murder of Theodore's wife. They both planned the murder because if Carney just divorced his wife, then she would get almost all of the assets and money, leaving them broke. But if she died, then he would get everything. And for the first time in this whole episode, Niles says something that I actually agree with.
I know where his head is at. We all do. Right down there between his legs.
The two decide to celebrate being found not guilty by having a nice nude hot tub session with a side of champagne. But as they're kissing up on each other, Niles decides to appear from the shadows like a psychopathic Batman and scared the crap out of both of them. Carney seems to think this is some kind of robbery, so he tells Niles to take all the money out of his wallet, but Niles could care less for his money. He just wants to make things right in the world, and he takes justice into his own hands and finds the two of them guilty of the murder of Miss Carney and sentences them to death.
And I sentence you to death. That sentence to be carried out immediately.
Wait a minute!
Then using a remote, he turns on something in the water, which turns their night into a fun night with their lover to some sort of messed up human stew. Bro, throw some carrots in there. Maybe some potatoes. Also, this dude dies in the funniest way possible. Bro went cross-eyed, the shock hit him so hard. Cut to some time later and Niles is partying it up at a strip club. In a scene that has so many boobs in it that this video will 100% get taken down if I show even a second of that footage. I don't think any amount of blurring can get rid of all the boobs in the scene. As he's walking around, he says some pretty degrading and incelish stuff about women.
The old rule. Treat whores like queens and queens like whores. You got no problem.
And besides the quick reminder to the audience that Niles is a horrible guy, he's not actually there for pleasure. He's there for business. One of the strippers was acquitted for murdering her boyfriend, and she just so conveniently is dancing in a metal cage 10 feet off the ground. Niles sneaks backstage where he has his homemade murder kit set up and jumper cables from the excuse me, ma'am. From the cage to the back of the stage. But when Niles slams down the switch to electrocute the dancer, it doesn't work.
Mr. Talbot, you are under arrest. You have the right to remain silent.
Turns out it was a sting operation to catch Niles for taking justice into his own hands, aka murdering 3 people. And cut to some time later, and now Niles has ironically been sentenced to the death penalty, which was recently reinstated. Dang, how fast was the government back then? And as the cops drag Niles to the chair, he begs the cops to let him go. They used to be buddies, they all know he isn't a bad guy, and he even starts telling them that the governor is going to call to save his life if they just give him a minute, giving the police all the excuses that he made fun of other people for saying just earlier in the episode. But when they don't listen to his pleas, he just starts insulting the cops as they strap him down to the chair.
You miserable chicken shit bastard!
But now it's time for Niles Talbot to get a taste of his own medicine. And just like all the other prisoners, the governor didn't call to save his life. Then we fade back to our favorite crypt dweller who spits off as many electrocution jokes as he can as he gives himself a little taste of the electric chair.
Good. What a revolting development.
But he does end off the episode by saying,
So remember, boys and girls, safety first.
and that's where the episode ends. What an incredible first episode for a series. It almost perfectly sets up everything you need to know about the rest of the series. I mean, it's very dark and gritty, mostly thanks to Walter Hill's directing, but it has a lot of black humor, a great story, great acting, a whole lot of boobs, and it even had a main character getting a huge dose of karma, which is something that happens in like 80% of the episodes. All it's really missing is some sort of paranormal element in there, but that's okay. And the first thing I want to say is I love how well shot this episode is. It feels very unique to the rest of the series, and it actually takes a whole lot of inspiration from the comic it's based off of. Actually, it really feels like a comic come to life with the dramatic lighting and Niles' many fourth wall breaks and narration throughout the episode. And there wasn't like a drop in quality at any point. It almost seems like it got better as the episode went on. I also love that they made you hate literally everyone in the episode. There is not a single person you meet in this episode that has a redeemable quality to them. They've all either murdered somebody or wish they did. Even the bartender. He just gave me bad vibes. I didn't like him. And I think they did that on purpose so you don't really get upset whenever he tries to kill people. You almost try to justify him killing these people because they've killed someone else. But I do wish that they showed that one of the people that he killed was actually innocent, which would make him no better than them in a way. Just to show the audience that Niles doesn't care about evidence, he just likes to kill people. They actually did this in the comic, which makes you kind of look at him differently. William Sadler did an incredible job playing Niles. He's actually kind of like a legend in the Tales from the Crypt community because he's in the very first episode, he's in a couple more episodes after this one, and he is Breaker in the Demon Knight movie. He's also in the Two-Fisted Tales movie, which isn't connected to them at all, but there's a few Two-Fisted Tale comics in the show. So you might actually see him on this channel again one day. But the director Walter Hill liked his audition so much that he told him to perform the scenes identical to the way he did in the audition room. He somehow makes Niles very charismatic, almost to the point where you want to like him, but then he starts talking about how much he likes killing people, and it makes you realize that you want to keep your distance, you know? It's probably just that southern twang he has in the episode. It's like I'm 13 again listening to some random dude at a gas station give me horrible life advice. Niles is just a very interesting character. He has a very messed up view of the world. To him, it seems like everything is black and white. You're either a good person or a bad person. You're a stand-up citizen or you're a criminal. But no one is innocent. He strangely thinks everyone is inherently violent like himself and would love the opportunity to watch someone's life get taken away from them.
They put executions on TV, be the fucking highest rated show of all time.
And maybe even do it themselves if they had a chance. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to kill anybody. Do you? Oh. Maybe we should talk to somebody about that, actually. It's a little concerning. It does kind of irk me that when Niles gets fired from his job and starts taking matters into his own hands, he doesn't seem to do any investigating before killing anybody. Luckily, I think everyone he killed did deserve it. But what if the couple really didn't kill the guy's wife, or the police arrested the wrong biker? Then you would have killed an innocent person, and then what do you do after that? Do you kill yourself? Oh. I want this video to stay on YouTube. What would you do? Commit somersault? Don't you love the YouTube flagging system? I can't say anything. But no, like seriously, I'm gonna compare him to Dexter, which is kind of like Coughing Baby versus Nuke situation, but just hear me out. They're both obviously psychopaths who decide to take justice into their own hands because they believe what they're doing is a necessary evil. Niles takes about a day or two after finding out a so-called murderer is acquitted to kill them. But Dexter won't kill someone unless he knows for certain that they fit his code. He did kill a few people that didn't fit his code. We're not talking about those ones right now. But Dexter would do very thorough background checks, and he would even follow the people for days or weeks until he had enough evidence and knew for certain that they've killed somebody. Dexter's also just better at killing people and hiding evidence, hence why he got away with hundreds of murders, while Niles got caught after 3. Get mogged. Now, I've mentioned a comic a couple of times, and I think it's about time we check it out and compare it to the episode. We start the story by meeting Edgar Bowman, the executioner for the state. He's a very diligent man, making sure that the people in the chair will get what they deserve. Tonight, they're executing a man who murdered his own brother, and Edgar is more than happy to pull the switch. And after each execution, Edgar takes a long walk to calm himself down from how ecstatic he gets for killing a man. He also doesn't discriminate. He'll execute women as well with not a single ounce of remorse. Somehow, Edgar has gained some notoriety across multiple states for being such a good executioner. He gets so popular that other states would invite him to attend their executions as a guest, and most of the time, they would just let him do the executing himself. Like right here in the comic, it shows him happily hanging a man. To Edgar, it's his duty to kill. He sees himself as a symbol of justice. But one day, Edgar noticed how many people were escaping that justice. 10 murderers were set free in a short amount of time because of weak juries. And this really angered Edgar. He felt like all of them on that list were guilty and they needed to pay for their crimes. And in his wrath, he starts to believe that he's being tested by a higher authority to see if he will take matters into his own hands and execute them on his own. And that if he doesn't do that, then he will be fired from his job. So that night he walks over to a man named Casper Jones's house and sets an electrical current through his iron fence gate so that when he touches it, he gets fried. And a few nights after that, he finds a man named Arthur Boway camping upstate to clear his mind of the murder of his friend Jim that he was falsely accused of. To clear his mind, he decides to take a shower, but Edgar either turned the water heater up to the max, which basically melts Arthur's head off, or somehow sent an electrical current through the water and shocks him to death. Either way, he's now killed an innocent man. Next up is a man named George Flood, also accused of murder. And Edgar decided to wait for a dark and stormy night around the time George would be headed home from work. He knew that George would be soaked from walking in the rain, and the water on the ground would also carry a current through his body. So, using some gloves and wire cutters, he clips one of the power lines and throws it at him, giving him a makeshift electric chair. But after George's death, the cops start to link all these electrical deaths together and figure that it's all from one guy. And they predict that his next victim is going to be a woman named Betty Bates because she was acquitted from a murder trial just a month earlier. And they were right, because the next day Edgar is stalking Betty, but he's worked around cops long enough to spot a detective trying to hide in plain sight. But that's not going to stop him. It actually invigorates him, since now he has to come up with a more creative way to execute her. So he sets up a wooden water trough with some high voltage wires in the bushes near her house. And his plan is to snatch her from the bushes and quickly throw her into the trough before anyone can see it. Little did he know, the cops were still keeping a close eye on her, and an unlucky flash of lightning gives away his position, where the cops quickly arrest Edgar, and a few months later, he gets a taste of his own medicine, while crying about how he doesn't want to die. Honestly, the episode does a pretty good job at adapting the comic. Sure, there are things that are different to better fit the time period, like hanging people wasn't okay in the 80s, but they did keep a few of the kills the same, like the Iron Gate kill, and even the bath kills are similar. I do like how the episode explains that he's electrocuting the couple in the hot tub, because in my first read through, I thought that he just turned the water heater up like really high and burned the guy, which is honestly a little more horrific and horrible if you think about it. And like I said earlier, I like how they added an innocent man into the comic, just to show you how far gone Edgar is from the start of the comic. He goes from a working man just doing his duty to literal murderer. Granted, it was like a thin line there to begin with. I also kind of like the ending of the comic more, where he gets caught, but he knows the police are watching him. It was like getting away with the first 3 murders really boosted his confidence, and he thought that he was king of the world. I do wish that they showed the cops kind of getting onto Niles' trail in the episode at least a little bit. Like, you could just cut out one of the monologue scenes and add a scene where the cops are like, hey, these murders are all kind of similar. Maybe we can like outsmart the guy, like lure him to somewhere. I think that would have made the episode a lot better, honestly, because the arrest kind of just comes out of nowhere in the episode. I will say that Edgar did seem a bit more unstable than Niles did, and I think Niles probably would have backed off if he knew the cops were on to him. He seemed to be a little bit more smarter. More smarter? Am I more smarter? What the f? He seemed to be smart enough to know when enough was enough. But I do like how Edgar is more unstable. Like, he truly believes that it's his duty from a higher being to assassinate people in the name of justice. With Niles, it just kind of felt like he was doing it for himself, to like satisfy this urge he felt. But honestly, both of them get pretty carried away with it. But honestly, I like the episode more. I think it's like an upgrade from the comic. Let me know what you think though. And that's all I've got for you today. I've got a Patreon. The $5 members get bonus content plus views a day early, maybe some pictures of my cats, a Discord server, and your name right here on screen. Like the video if you like the video. Thank you for watching the video all the way through. I appreciate you all, and peace.